Whew. That's a lot of incense. Okay. Hey everyone, welcome to this video about the court cards. So I've been wanting to make this video for just about 2 years and said that I would do it in my numerology video. I will link that down below. And it's been a long time because the court cards are a very complex thing that a lot of people struggle with. And that is exactly why I've been wanting to make this video forever, but just couldn't find the energy to find the right approach. But I think now I've found it, and now I'm really excited to share with you guys in this first video an introduction to the court cards. There will be more videos about the specific court cards, going through each single one of them, but this video is basically going to be an introduction into what they represent, how we can approach the topic of gender with them, what structure the court cards follow, and what the elements are that are assigned to the different cards. This will definitely help us remember the meanings later when we get to the specific cards. And I also want to talk about the cautionary elements and the encouraging elements of each card, because as with every other card in tarot, you usually have, some people call it positive and negative elements, but I like to call it encouraging and cautionary elements that can pop up in a reading. So let's talk about some general things. Generally, traditionally, court cards are often read as people. So when you do a spread and say the Knight of Cups comes up, a lot of readers, a lot of traditional readers would read this as a person stepping into your life, being a very chivalrous, kind, emotional man, and a mature, emotionally mature man. But nowadays, a lot of readers have switched to a different perspective, myself included, which is then that rather than representing people, court cards represent energies. And those energies can manifest within you, or they can manifest within other people. And it's a bit more of an archetypal approach, that we don't see them as specific people who are just limited to these aspects that the court cards represent, but rather it could be a person entering your life that represents that energy, not because they are fully like the Knight of Cups, but because they have that meaning in your life. Or it could be an energy within yourself that needs to manifest stronger, or that is manifested too strongly, depending on the position in the spread. So just like you feel attracted to certain people who represent parts of yourself that you want to build up and that you want to integrate more in your personality, just like that, the court cards also come up in this context. That is how I feel. So, if you feel attracted to a person outside of yourself, they often represent a suppressed aspect of you or something that you want to cultivate. Let's say you are a very scared person, a very cautious person, and you feel attracted to someone who is very adventurous and very devil-may-care, and that is an aspect that you want to cultivate in yourself. That's why you feel the attraction. And a lot of the time, that's how it is with the court cards. Not necessarily because there will be this one person stepping into your life, but just because this energy is present for you at the moment and because it needs to be cultivated within you. So that is how I see the court cards most of the time. It really depends on the position. It could definitely also be a dominant trait that you already have. It doesn't necessarily have to be something that you need to cultivate. Now let's talk about gender for a minute, because gender definitely limits the perspective, because we have in the Rider-Waite-Smith Tarot 2 different genders. Obviously, we have the queens, which are female traditionally, and we have the kings, knights, and pages, which are usually represented as male figures. Now, this is, of course, a bit of a hurdle if you try to see them as energies and you don't really see yourself as a feminine or a masculine person, and the King of Swords comes up and you can't quite vibe with that energy because of the gender. That's a little bit of a hurdle, but we will get past that. So what I want to say is that it is definitely legitimate to question the gender of these court cards. But it can also kind of help us to use gender as a springboard in order to understand the first basics of the cards. So because gender is such an ingrained concept in our society, we can use it to understand things, we can use it to understand structures, but then we can take the conscious decision to transcend it. And I've made a video about this as well, about yin and yang energies, and that is more what I like to see it as, not feminine and masculine, but yin and yang energies, because that's essentially what the energies are that are represented here. So we are reframing masculine as an active, a dynamic energy, and reframing feminine as a more receiving and nourishing energy. Not because women are always receiving and nourishing and men are always active and dynamic. That is exactly the point. We don't want that determinism, but rather we want to see it as energies that all of us have. We all have active dynamic energy, and we have more receiving, more nourishing energy within us. So reframing it as yin and yang is very helpful, I believe. Now, there are decks that don't assign gender to the court cards at all, which is good. Then you have the Crowley Tarot or Thoth Tarot, which has the princess instead of the page. So there's all kinds of different perspectives you can take. Just know that in the beginning, it can be helpful to think about it in gendered terms, but you should be aware that you can embody all of those energies. Just because it's the King of Swords and you're a born woman, you are a cis woman, doesn't mean that you can't embody King of Sword energy. I'm sure everyone is aware of this, but I still want to state it again. Now let's talk about the structure of the court cards. Just like the minor arcana 1 through 10 cards, which I covered in my very old numerology video that is kind of low quality as far as sound and image goes, but whatever. It's still a good video, I think. I will link it below. Just like that, the court cards also have a structure that they follow. I will go more closely into that structure, but let me say some general things about the structure. With the page and the knight, you often have a learning curve. I will talk about that in a second, but just remember, page and knight is kind of a learning curve, whereas the king and the queen are more fully embodied lessons of the respective suit that they are in. And you may wonder now, how are they different if both of them are fully embodied, both the king and the queen, fully embodied lessons, fully integrated lessons? We will talk about that because they each have their different flaws, their different merits, their different cautionary elements and encouraging elements. And yes, they are definitely different, the king and the queen, because they manifest the suit's energy in different ways. And as I explain now, you will understand what I mean by that. Because all of the 4 cards, the pages, knights, kings, and queens, have elements assigned to them as well. And that can help us so much to remember the energies that they embody. So let's talk about the elements of the court cards now. With the pages, they are usually associated with the element of earth. Now, what I mean by this is obviously you have the page of cups, which is also associated with water energy because it is cups. But the page as a concept, as a general concept, is associated with the element of earth corresponding with the discs. So what that means is that the pages generally lay the groundwork for something. They are a sort of initiatory energy and also the willingness to take a beginner perspective on a certain topic. If they come up in a spread, it might be telling you to go back through the basics, go back to the basics in order to solve a certain issue. Another aspect of the pages is that they still need to gain confidence in their abilities, which means this can be an encouragement to keep working on something. It can be a reminder that you don't know everything yet, but you can learn as you go along. Often they are also seen as errand runners or messengers, which means that sometimes they can stand for very menial, small tasks that need to be done, but also the learning value that lies in practical tasks like that. Liz Worth gives a really good perspective in her book, The Power of Tarot, which is that the pages are just arriving in the realm that they are exploring. So for example, the Page of Swords is just arriving in the realm of swords where, you know, there's Knights of Swords, there's the Queen of Swords, there's the King of Swords, and the page is just entering into this world of air energy, of sword energy, and is now going to have a very steep learning curve of finding his bearings or their bearings in this new realm. So essentially, they are an inexperienced initiate and they need to get back to the basics or need to learn the basics in order to make any sort of progress. And then they can become knights, because pages usually assist knights traditionally in medieval society. This is what Liz Worth also mentions, and I really like that logic. And they eventually become knights then. So let's speak about the knights. The knights are associated with fire energy, which means they are very practical, very fiery. You send them in if you want stuff to get done. They are essentially more experienced pages who have gained confidence in their abilities and have learned the lessons and are ready to apply them now. So being daring, taking steps without questioning themselves is the energy that the knights embody here. So oftentimes they are also read as a cautionary card that is telling you to not be too overconfident, because sometimes we can have a sort of misguided confidence in our abilities or in our decisions. And sometimes the knights can be a bit of a cautionary idea not to step too fast and not to be too confident in what you know. On the other hand, of course, they can also be the ultimate reminder that yes, you do have the experience, you do have the skills, follow what you think is right and you will get rewarded. So it can be both depending on the position in the spread and whether you read with reversed cards or not. The knights sometimes don't know as much as they think they do. They think they know the full picture. They haven't reached that point yet where they realize that they know nothing. That we all reach at some point in our lives, I feel. For example, I will go into this in the next video more, but just to give an example, the Knight of Swords is a very logical person because he is associated with air energy, but he might not have the emotional intelligence or the emotional lessons that it takes in order to make a balanced decision. So the knights are not about balanced decisions. They are much more about fully embodying the energy of that suit that they represent and not questioning themselves so much, which can be their downfall or it can be their success. It really depends on the position in the spread. And sometimes the knights are also known for investing their energy uselessly because they are so laser focused, and they sometimes have a tendency towards blind actionism. So the knights are they can be an incredibly positive energy or a very problematic energy, depending on, as I said, the spread. Now let's talk about the queens and then the kings. The queens are associated with the energy of water. And I just want to say real quick that the queens are not below the kings. I sort of see the pages below the knights in a way. And the queens and the king are just on the same level, you know. Because the thing is, they manifest the energy differently. They manifest the energy in a watery way rather than in the ways that the kings do, which we will get to in a minute. With the queens, they have a more nurturing, a more receptive and caring energy, which means here we have the whole yin factor very heavily coming in. And it's a stationary energy. It's not so much a go out and get things done energy like the knights and maybe the kings. It's more of a card of silent and slow evolution, changing your perspective, learning about new things, and making decisions based on what you've learned so far. Sometimes they also have this flaw or this cautionary thing that they are focused on one energy of the suit, even though they've integrated lessons from others. You know, the knights, they haven't really integrated any other lessons. They spent the time in the realm that they are in, and they've fully integrated, for example, sword energy. The queens are a bit more balanced. They have integrated lessons from all 4 suits, but have a focus on the suit that they are in, obviously. Queens traditionally take care of the court. They sometimes take care of the entertainment. They make sure that the people are not just entertained, but also loved and cared for. And the kings are more the lawmakers. They make the law-based decisions. It's a bit of a more cold energy, not so motherly if you want to take it back to a gendered perspective again. So let's talk about the kings, because what element do they embody? There's only one left, air energy. Once again, they do not stand above the queens. They simply have different tasks from the queens. So what this means, the air energy, is that kings value logic. They value rational thinking, they value opinions, and they manifest the suit's energy in that way. So if you have the King of Cups, for example, this is a combination between water and air energy. So he uses his emotions and his intuition as well as his logical sense. So learning to govern and control his emotions in a more mindful sense, that is something that the King of Cups does, because he's a combination of air energy and water energy. So if the king comes up in a spread, very often it's about making decisions very actively, even when it's hard, even when you need a lot of willpower or a lot of reflection and a lot of dominance and clarity in order to make a decision. That is what the king does. Sometimes that's tough decisions, sometimes that's easy decisions, but that's what they represent. Just making executive decisions or judgment calls about something. Often they are also about building enterprises, building something that you've been wanting to bring into this world. So often this will be about making a judgment call in the ways of the suit. So for example, the King of Cups, or no, let's not take him again, we had him before. Let's take the King of Wands. This would be about making an executive decision in a creative way, or making an executive decision in a very fast, impulsive way, because that is what fire energy embodies. So decision making, judgment calls, discernment, tough decisions, that's what the kings are all about. And also wisdom and experience in their respective suit, but also, just like the queens, in the 3 other elements that they don't represent. Now, we will go through each court card individually in the next video so that I can show you how those energies specifically manifest. As soon as the video is up, I will put a link down below. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions or video suggestions that you'd like to see, let me know in the comments. I will also put a link to my Instagram, my Patreon. If you want to dwell in my domain a little longer, you can subscribe there, you can subscribe here. That would make me very happy. And if you feel called, please like this video, share this video. It does help. So yes, I wish you the greatest of days, the greatest of weeks, and I will see you very, very soon.